the culture of life and the law. We'll explore that and more on today's edition of Life Matters. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, a very specific thing. The right to life is not a feeling. The right to life is not a religious predilection. The right to life is a specific legal right asserted by the founders of America, but it had been asserted throughout human history, that each and every individual are endowed by their Creator to be alive. Life is a gift from a Creator. It is not a gift from the government, but governments do, according to America's founders. Governments have a responsibility to ensure these rights. Governments are instituted among men. So the right to life is a critical principle. It's a foundational element. Many people don't understand that, and they get caught up in the feelings, and there's a lot of feelings, I have to admit. There are a lot of feelings. There are a lot of emotions. But unless you cut through those emotions to the principles, it's really emotions where you can make a lot of mistakes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about mistakes that people have made on both sides of this issue and what you can do about it right now. I'm speaking in June of 2022. We're still awaiting the release of the Dobbs decision. However, there's been an attempt on the life of a Supreme Court justice. There are mobs who are marching and threatening in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices in violation of the law. If someone has to make a decision and you threaten them and their home, you're trying to influence that decision, and the courts are not designed to do that in our nation. Our nation is designed as a nation of laws. You can lobby legislators, but these are not legislators. And unfortunately, a form of thug politics has arisen now in 2022. As you know, on Life Matters, yes, we talk about the things of life, and we speak specifically often about California. A lot goes on in California, and then it's exported. But everything we talk about, there's deeper principles, and I want to talk about those deeper principles as we address an issue now that the National Right to Life Committee feels very, very important. I'd like to read to you from a memo issued from the National Right to Life headquarters to the board of directors and to all affiliates of National Right to Life from Carol Tobias, president of National Right to Life. And it's critically important that you understand why this is being done. I'll just read this memo first. It is obvious that the pro-abortion forces and their Democrat allies want as much confrontation, chaos, and perhaps even violence as possible this summer, both to intimidate the U.S. Supreme Court and to affect the election. Pro-lifers, the National Right to Life state affiliates and chapters should not let themselves be lured into inadvertently engaging in activities that could give these groups exactly what they want and exacerbate volatile situations. Some groups that oppose abortion but are not affiliated with National Right to Life have contacted many of you and urged you to join them in celebratory and counter demonstrations. This is not sanctioned or advised by National Right to Life. Remember, our opponents are looking for an opportunity to engage in riotous behavior. But when and if violence occurs, the media will lay the blame on pro-life people as a whole and on our political and legislative allies. Please continue your peaceful, prayerful, pro-life work that has brought us this far and saved so many lives, and leave the pro-abortion gang to simply scream at themselves if they wish. Let's not be part of it. That's a memo from Carol Tobias, president of the National Right to Life Committee, and I concur entirely. I'm going to talk when we come back about historical facts that have demonstrated how easily the media is turned and how circumstances can be turned on their ear for evil purposes, even if you think what you're doing is right. It's very important at this critical time, given the fact that we've had a threat against a Supreme Court justice, that even the justices that are there now still are being demonstrated against. That is not how our form of government is supposed to function. If they were legislators, it would be appropriate. But when you intimidate a justice who's trying to make a decision and knowingly want to influence that decision with threats, that is not our republic. So you need to understand what this battle is about. When we come back, I'll give you some examples from history and from my personal life where I have seen this very thing happen years ago, where well-meaning pro-lifers weren't doing anything wrong, but they were sucked into a conflict and then they were blamed. And the media was glad to blame them. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Life Matters.
They say sunlight is the best disinfectant. Did you know that California has a law in the books that says you need to protect babies born alive in the course of an abortion? But that law is simply ignored. The current legislature and Governor Newsom's administration support all abortions all the time. And they simply do not examine or regulate the practice, even though our tax dollars pay for it. We need to shine a light on this cover-up of the abortion industry in our state. Go to californiaprolife.org and click on the Light of Day Project. We need the facts about late-term abortion to be examined and made known. We need the government doing its job to protect lives. We need the light of day on this. Go to californiaprolife.org.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
So we're back, and I was telling you about an incident in 1980. That's when it happened. I was involved in counseling in Santa Rosa, California, prayerfully waiting outside an abortion clinic. The young woman with me would go up and would approach the girl going to the abortion clinic, and it was my job to prayerfully approach whoever was accompanying her. I'll tell you this, on more than one occasion, it was the young man, and he greeted me with a punch in the stomach. Now, let me tell you this, I took everything I could and did not respond in kind. That would have been foolish. But that's happened to me. But that same year in 1980, there was a demonstration in Santa Rosa, California on Sonoma Avenue, and a group of pro-lifers had signs out front. I was not actually involved in this demonstration. I was watching. But what happened is that the pro-abortion advocates started a shouting match, which unfortunately our side got involved in. And then suddenly there was a rabbit punch. You know what a rabbit punch is? That's a very quick thump that is seen but not seen. It's very quick. And the woman who was a pro-abortion advocate had hit the sign, and the stick hit this guy in the nose, and he had an incredible bloody nose. He unwisely called the police, I have to tell you. And that didn't get any better because the woman simply lied about what she did. She lied. And think about this. If you're willing to kill human babies, if that is the height of what you see as just and fair and right, what's a lie? A lie is nothing, comparatively speaking. So she lied. And guess who got in trouble? I don't know how that case resolved, but I do know it didn't look good in the media for the pro-lifers. You can probably see it in history, but you should see it right now. Our nation is in turmoil, and our media wants to blame you. Please be wise. If you look back historically, it's what's called a false flag. And throughout history, I'm a bit of a history buff. I'll share a couple of things real quickly from the 30s. That in 1939, everyone knows that World War II started in September 1st, 1939. You may not know that it was started under a false flag attack, that German Nazi soldiers actually had captured some Polish individuals and dressed them in German uniforms. They then went to a radio station on the border of Poland. There they executed the Polish soldiers who were wearing German uniforms. And they declared, and that they also did start broadcasting in Polish, and they declared that that radio station in Germany had been attacked and that those Poles had started the war because they were speaking out against the brave German soldiers and the freedom that Germans sought. They just wanted more living room. They wanted to get to Danzig, which is now called Gdansk in Poland, and it was a German town. And so the famous Danzig corridor needed to be invaded, and certain Polish people didn't want that. So World War II started under a false flagged attack. And if you look at history, it says that the Poles, under this false flag, Polish soldiers invaded Germany first. They started it. False flag attacks are very, very common. The media does not mind if it has an agenda. It doesn't mind promoting those ideas if that is the agenda they share. Right now in our culture, our media is opposed to respect for innocent human life. There are some exceptions, but by and large, we have a woke media dedicated to the abortion mentality, and you need to be aware of that. So we agree with Carol Tobias. I do want to give you some other examples from history. This is how common, if you read history and understand it, the false flag attack of good causes is how great evil has been perpetrated. If you look back at Roman history, it's how Julius Caesar went from being simply a leader in the Roman Republic to completely seizing all power and creating the role of emperor for himself. He did it through creating a war in a conflict that was basically a false flag. That's right. Caesar's Gallic War, I used to teach Latin. I've gone through Caesar's Gallic Wars many times. In Caesar's Gallic War, he actually created the false impression that the Gauls, all of the different tribes of Gauls, were actually a threat to Rome, and they needed to be attacked. He was going to protect Rome. He then turned around and also created a new problem when he made the decision to cross the Rubicon. He needed to come back to Rome. He was prohibited by law, by the Republic's laws, from coming back. But he justified his crossing of the Rubicon to challenge the authority of the Roman Republic, and he destroyed the Republic. He started the Roman Empire, which is based on one man's authority. You know the rest of the story. But there's many, many other stories. Back to Germany again. That's so fresh for many people. They know what you're talking about. And you do know now about the beginning of World War II and the false flag that somehow the Poles, they started it. They started the war. But those of you who know internal politics of Germany at that time, the very famous Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht was the nickname of a terrible night in Germany early on when the Nazis were seizing power, and Hitler's brown shirts, which now were nationwide, the Nazi SA, the Sturmtruppers Arbeit, they basically created a situation where in every major city, they broke the glass in the windows of Jewish property. Jewish storefronts were attacked, and the glass was in the street. That's what the crystal refers to, is the shiny pieces of glass shining in the street, like crystal, but it's a bit ironic. Kristallnacht, Crystal Night, refers to this attack on the Jews, blaming them for the sufferings of Germany. They were the rich people. They were the ones that kept the money. They were causing inflation. It was the Jews. It was the business owners, which was code, by the way, for Jews in those days. They were business owners and bankers. They needed to be attacked. So you should be aware of Kristallnacht. If you've never read history, be aware of that term, Kristallnacht. You may not be aware of the fact that that very next day, Adolf Hitler went on the air, and he went to the newspapers, and he urged that there be quiet. This riotous behavior needed to come to an end. Both sides needed to stop. Both sides were to blame. If you studied history, do you really think that Jewish shopkeepers were going out and breaking windows? Do you really think they were to blame? And yet the newspapers of the time were more than willing to repeat that assertion, that there was this fight in the street. Do you really think the Jews were out causing this? No, but the folks who read the newspapers and listened to the radio, they were more than inclined to blame the suffering of Germany, the high cost of living, on those wealthy Jews. They were the real problem. Look at all the stores they own. Look at all the prosperity they have. And so the naive German people were willing to believe that false flag assertion about Kristallnacht. Many people have heard of Kristallnacht. They don't realize it was being used to blame the Jews for the very activities of the German stormtroopers. So understand this in history. If you understand history, you won't be condemned to repeat it. And that's been said by many wise people throughout history. If you don't know your history, you're going to be condemned to repeat it. So again, I agree with Carol Tobias. Here in California, we have already canceled in the month of May 3 different events. We don't talk about what's happened, but we've had death threats at California Pro-Life. We don't talk about them publicly, I'll be honest with you, and even go to the police because they're hard to trace. That's the first thing. But once it hits the news, it actually gives people ideas. And you don't want to do that. They would like that notoriety. So right now, we live in a moment in history where you need to be wise. And there is a temptation for many pro-life individuals to go out and do stuff. So I want to lay out another principle. That principle is activity is not the same as accomplishment. You don't want to just have a demonstration to have a demonstration. You don't want to just walk around with signs if it isn't very specifically and knowledgeably tied to very specific policies that are moving things forward. You want to be effective in your actions. So remember this principle. Activity is not the same as accomplishment. Make sure that you use your resources well. And if you're getting people to do things, make sure that there's smart things to do. And you're directing that activity in a direction that will actually accomplish something. So while it is gratifying at times to join with like-minded people, just protesting isn't quite enough. I do remember specifically during that time in 1980 and 1981 that there were a lot of people going into abortion clinics and being arrested. They were going to prison. These were pro-lifers who would resist and break the law as conscientious objectors, you might say. And they went to prison, and it was almost a sweeping, fashionable thing to do if you were pro-life. But I realized something as that was going on. It wasn't my goal that police officers would come to abortion clinics to arrest my friends, my brothers and sisters. That's not our goal. Our goal is that police officers would come to those clinics and arrest the perpetrator, the abortionist. That should be our goal. How will that goal be accomplished? The police officers are sworn to uphold the laws of their jurisdiction. It's important that you be involved in the civic process, that you be involved in the lawmaking process. It's the lawmakers who make these laws. It's critically important to realize that in order to be effective in our culture at large, you have to speak to the culture in a way that they can understand. And just being defiant. And unfortunately, we know why you want to be defiant. I know why I want to be defiant. But I want to learn how to do it in a way that's effective. To not simply have activity without accomplishment, we need to make sure that our activities are tied to an accomplishment. And going out and demonstrating for this upcoming decision, whatever happens, I strongly recommend you not. California Pro-Life Council throughout the month of May has had no public events. And now National Right to Life has urged anyone, all pro-lifers, to please don't be defiant. Don't be celebratory. You're asking for trouble. I promise you, you're asking for trouble.
Life Matters continues after this.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council. Would you help us during our pledge drive? It's easy. You can just pledge by text. Using your cell phone, text the word GIVE to 916-347-5644. That's 916-347-5644. This is a text-only line, not a voice line. Once you enter the word GIVE, you'll be able to follow the prompts to pledge, and you can also find out a lot about California Pro-Life. So please, don't do this while driving. Please send a text GIVE, that's GIVE, to 916-347-5644. We'll do the rest. Our opponents get vast sums from the government. We can only look to you and folks like you who take a stand for life. Thanks for your help. That's 916-347-5644. Text the word GIVE. Thanks, you're a lifesaver.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Okay, we're going to switch gears for a little bit. We've been talking about the wisdom of not simply demonstrating for the sake of demonstrating. Often you're giving your opponents an opportunity unwittingly, and you've seen that happen in history. We've talked about that. I'm going to change gears. I want to talk about something going on in California that is actually going on everywhere, and it's based on the fact that most people don't understand what Roe v. Wade does, nor do they understand the Doe versus Bolton decision. And as you have heard, I have written a book, The Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. I want you to read that. It's critically important you understand that, because the media version of what Roe is what a lot of pro-lifers debate. They will debate, when does life begin? No, don't do that. They will debate the trimester system. The trimester system is complete fiction. The trimester system actually never existed. It was Doe versus Bolton that authorized doctors to kill according to their own lights, not according to any objective outside standard like the Hippocratic Oath. The decision of Doe v. Bolton said a doctor can do that abortion at any time and for any reason. There need not be anything wrong with the mother or child if in his mind it may be harmful to the woman's health, including psychological, sociological, emotional, anything he'd like to extrapolate as dealing with her health. Justice Blackmun said, you as a doctor are now free to kill that baby and you will not be prosecuted. That's in Doe v. Bolton. Why don't you talk about that? You really should if you're a pro-lifer. And this is why, because right now there's a misunderstanding about Roe v. Wade. And because it's on the chopping block here in California, but in other places, the pro-abortion advocates are seeking to cement unlimited abortion in the name of Roe v. Wade. And specifically, they don't have doctors involved in most of these cases. Here in California, there's a proposal to make California a sanctuary state where literally taxpayers will fly women, pregnant women from other states and jurisdictions, dismissing the laws of those jurisdictions. It's unclear, will they fly minors without parents' knowledge or consent? But we do know this, they're willing to pay for not just the abortion, not just for the flight, but for the time off, for any expense. It's a California-based abortion vacation that the state of California would like to put into place, and that's just one of 46 measures that the state legislature in California is putting forward because many people think that's what the law is now. I mean, under Roe, a woman can just get an abortion anytime. You need to understand the specifics of the law and the specifics of what it's done to the medical profession. But here's what's worse now. Here in California, the California Democrat Party, which is an authoritarian, absolutist party, they do not bridge any dissent. They are 100% pro-abortion, and they're putting on the ballot a constitutional amendment for the fall of 2022. This constitutional amendment would enshrine unlimited abortion rights, taxpayer funding. It would deny fathers' rights. It would deny any of the many other common sense measures you may think are in place. There's no trimesters mentioned. No, there's no limits on abortion in the pro-choice world. If you do, then it's not a choice. And so you're going to see a measure that Californians will be invited to vote on and they know nothing about. They're confused by a dishonest media. Make sure that you understand the parameters of the real debate. This child has no rights under Roe and Doe, and they will take it even further because there will not be doctors involved. This is a justification of human baby killing because you own it. That's what choice means. So it's critically important that you understand this is coming. Your neighbors will be asked to vote on it. Your neighbors don't realize every other medical procedure requires informed consent. If you go to the doctor and you're having a procedure done, or a dentist, they have to tell you what they're going to do. They have to explain if there's any risks or possible problems. There's no informed consent for abortion. Parental consent. In nearly 1/3 of the cases, it's a minor getting the abortion, and the parent does not know. That will be in the Constitution, should these people be successful. Father's rights. Very often the father wants to help with that child. The father wants the child, wants to raise their son or daughter. But fathers have no rights under the choice world. There is no rights that will be in the Constitution for those fathers. There's something seriously wrong in how the media has presented this issue. And unless you understand the issue and can explain it to others, then we're not going to win this. So from here on out, you're going to hear us talking a lot about ACA 10, the constitutional amendment. We're going to be talking about choice, what it is. And you'll be hearing about the opportunities for you to make known the real facts of abortion, the real facts of Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, the real facts about what choice means. I think the best summation was by Byron White, a very brilliant Supreme Court justice. And if you want to debate Roe v. Wade, you need to start with Byron White. His dissent in 1973 was eloquent. Don't start with Justice Blackmun, because Justice Blackmun lied, and he admitted he lied. And pro-abortion legal scholars point out it makes no sense. But the dissent by Byron White is very clear. It authorized abortion on demand for any reason or for no reason in particular. Those are the words of Justice Byron White commenting on Roe v. Wade the day it came down. Why haven't you told people those facts? There need not be any reason. It's just for choice. Please let people know what's happening, this human killing and the flippant self-absorbed justification that's being used to justify this killing is without any ethical or moral foundation. And you don't have to be a Christian or a religious zealot to recognize that this is a human life. Science proclaims it. The facts are on our side, and facts are terrible things to waste. Innocent human life is being disposed of. And we're in a great battle around the world. This battle is not over in any state. As I've mentioned before, even when Roe is overturned, abortion advocates will be working in your community, working to weasel their way into the schools. If you're not awake to this real battle, if you aren't awake to what woke means and how they want to play with words and facts and distort them in your children's minds, don't think this will be over with a court decision. This is the battle of ideas. The right to life is a sacred trust that thankfully our nation enshrined in our founding documents. But if you want to keep that, you're going to have to fight for that idea. You're going to have to explain the idea of what the right to life is and why we need to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Obviously, children in the womb, but the elderly, the infirm. Intentional medical killing has become a way of life in a lot of American medicine. And if you don't wake up and explain to others the danger, then who will? Who will? So if you are pro-life, or even if you are not sure you're pro-life, if you care about other human beings who are vulnerable, be ready to speak up on their behalf. Be ready to step forward. You'll be surprised how quickly, when facts are made known, I've seen it happen in nursing homes, where one family member speaks up and says, wait a second, that's all it took. It took one family member, even though the rest of the family was fine with grandma being killed. One family member brought the light of day. Please be prepared in this battle. It's not far away. It's very, very close to you. And you being prepared is one of the goals of Life Matters.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life.